Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Hey everybody, thank you once again for joining me this evening for Learn Photography with Duck. I am your host, Duck, and I just realized that little intro thing, my beard has gotten a lot longer and a little bit whiter, so I think it's time to upgrade that photo. I'm looking at it like, wow, it's not that old. I've only been doing this for a little over a year now. Oh, going up year and a half now. So it's not that old. Why does it look so different? Anyhow.
Because hair grows.
Hair does grow.
Duck, you know what I always wondered? Is there a story behind Duck?
There is. My Christian name is Charles. And my first wife used to call me Chuck. And her cousin, when she was a toddler, she was, just learned to speak. She had a hard time saying Chuck. And whenever she called me, it sounded as if she was saying duck. And I'm just so glad it was the D sound, not the F sound. But anyhow, my ex thought it was like the funniest thing. So she started calling me Duck. Just kind of like a little funny thing. Then I went to work at a tattoo parlor. This was at the beginning of my tattooing career. And I got an apprenticeship in a tattoo parlor. And the owner of the shop says, well, if you're going to be a tattoo artist, you're going to need a tattoo artist's name. Do you have a nickname? And I go, well, no, not really. Everybody just calls me Chuck. My ex-wife, who was like right next to me, she goes, oh, at home, I call him Duck. And I'm like, oh my God. So that's where it started. And then, of course, after it happens over and over and over and over again, you kind of get used to it. It got to the point where nobody knew me by my real name. They just knew me as Duck. And so, eventually she and I split up. We went our separate ways. But the nickname traveled with me because it had already been established as part of my business. And my current wife, Diane, some of you met her, she hates that nickname. She would really love it if I dropped the nickname. But I don't know.
It's so much a part of you.
It is.
Right?
It is. It really is. Just like the cowboy hat. Everybody knows me for my cowboy hat. If I got rid of it, it's like, who are you?
Especially if you got rid of the beard, too.
Well, yeah, I've never had a full beard my entire life. I always had that little bit of a goatee. But I did tell myself, well, let me back it up a little bit. In the mid-late 80s, early 90s, and through a good portion of the 90s, I was a birthday clown. And I would entertain...
Man, what haven't you done?
I know, And if you don't believe me, all right?
He's going to give photographic evidence.
I do. This photo... This photo is from 1988. Let me see if I can hold it up.
How old are you?
I was mid-20s, maybe 25, 26.
Wait, you're in your mid-20s in that picture?
Yeah.
You look like a kid.
Yeah, I did. I had a very baby face. Very much so. And
I was picture for like 13 in that picture. Wow. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I am older than you. Like, maybe I'm not, man.
Yeah. Now I'll be 57 this year.
I'm older than you. I'll be 61.
Okay. You're still young. So anyhow, I've always loved entertaining, and I promised myself a long time ago that once I got to a certain age, I wanted to be able to play Santa Claus. And I am now at that age.
I think so. So.
So I let this grow out prior to, it was at the end of, when did I start growing out? I think it was just before COVID hit. And my plan was that last December would be my first year as a Santa Claus. But obviously, COVID kind of like destroyed all those dreams. And anyhow, so I've been kind of growing it out for a couple years now, and this is it. So, and it's great because in June we are having a Santa workshop at Lake Compounds. And it's a weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually going to be taking headshots of a lot of our club members there. So, hopefully I'll get some business out of that as well. And who knows? We'll see where that leads.
Thank you for satisfying my curiosity about the name Duck.
You are welcome.
Yeah, that was quite an answer for that question.
It's funny, when I first started dating Diane, like I said, she hates the nickname Duck. All right, she'll call me Chuck. And we were at Target one day, and she needed. She probably hates that I would be telling this story, but she needed, some new bras. So she's in the bra department. I am in the husband section out in the aisle, just waiting for her. And of course, she's in there, doing her business, and I'm just like, la la land, la 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 la, right? And she needed my attention. So she's calling me, Chuck, Chuck, Chuck. And it's just going way over my head. Finally, she gets frustrated and she goes, Duck. And I go, oh, what? Ooh, if you could see the anger in her face. I hate that name. Anyhow. So I think I keep it just to torture her. Because actually, when I retired from tattooing, the first thing she said, so are you going to get rid of the Duck nickname? You're not tattooing anymore. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. It's part of me now.
Too many people know me as Duck.
Yeah, it's true. Nobody really knows my real name. So, I just keep it. So, anyhow. Okay, Brian's here, Bob's here, awesome. All right, let me just get, let's see, turn this over to this. Saturday, June 26th. I know you guys heard this one before, but June 26th, I'm doing a multiplicity photo shoot at Southford Falls. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you can join us, that'd be great. It's going to be kind of like a two-part thing where on that Saturday, we actually do the hands-on photography where you're going to be partnered with another photographer using each other's camera. All right. So you're not going to be using your camera to take their picture. You're going to be using their camera to take their picture. So in a way, it's kind of nice because you get to use somebody else's gear and get to kind of see what other cameras are like. And you're going to basically be an assistant to that person. You're going to be collaborating, creating a little scene. And the way it works is you will plan out a scene where you populate that scene with multiple versions of yourself. And you can get as complicated as you want or as simple as you want. I did one where each time I place myself, I actually changed a shirt. So it looks like, different people in a way, because all the selves are wearing something different, You can have multiple props. All right, so just think about the environment that we're going to be in. Southford Falls, there's picnic tables, there's little covered bridge, there's the waterfalls, there's a little stream, there's rocks, there's grass. You can create a little picnic area. You can, maybe do yourself fishing, all kinds of fun stuff. Okay. Then that following Monday, I'm going to be hosting a special Zoom class where I go over how to edit it in Photoshop and blend all those images together into one seamless composition. So hopefully you'll join me on the 26th and then follow it up on the 28th. Okay.
There's sign up for that yet?
I don't know.
Or are we just going to meet you there?
If you can sign up through the event page, that'd be great.
Oh, it's on the event page?
Yep, it's on the event page.
Sorry,
okay.
Didn't know it was.
Yeah. Saturday, I did a beginner's workshop with Milford Photo. Some of you, that's where I've met you through, was some of the meetups with Milford Photo. And two of the participants from Saturday were very interested in night photography. And one of them, I told her, if you're really interested, post something to the Learn Photography with Duck site and see if anybody, shares your desire to do something. And she actually wants to do something in New Haven. Now, Milford Photo, Harold Shapiro does night photography stuff, but he kind of keeps it around in Milford area. She wants to do something in New Haven, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. So anyhow, if you haven't checked the Facebook page lately, there's a little conversation about doing a nighttime shoot in New Haven. We haven't decided on a date yet, and we're still thinking about locations. I think one of the locations that would be nice is from Sargent Drive, overlooking the bay onto the Q Bridge when it's all lit up with all the colors. And depending on how soon they start changing the colors, because 4th of July is coming on us quickly, we may get a red, white, and blue bridge. So I don't know when they change those lights, but that would be kind of cool. So anyhow, that's in the pipes that we want to, get together. All right. And
safety in numbers.
Safety in numbers, absolutely. But there's that commuter lot down there on Sargent Drive. If you've ever driven 95 northbound, right where it junctions to 91, 95, you'll notice that there's like a bunch of food trucks off on, as you're going northbound, it'll be off on the right-hand side. There's a big parking lot that we can kind of meet at there.
You've got the Veterans Memorial down there too.
Yep, further down is Veterans.
By the lot.
Yep, and then further up, there's the Yale Boathouse.
Okay, yep.
Which has a big deck.
Maharishi he showed you was out there one time when I was there. So I caught him meditating.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like a nice spot and something like that. But here again, nighttime, large city, whether it's Hartford, New Haven, wherever, we still need to take into account our environment.
That's it. So, I'll probably want to do a little bit of scouting around for other locations, that way we're not all just at the bridge and then that's it. Maybe if we can get another location, that'd be kind of cool. But anyhow, that's something that we're planning. And I've also mentioned that I want to get some live people back into the studio, and I'm going to be offering it to you guys who are my Patreons. I'm going to offer it to you guys to be able to come in, and we'll pick a project. Like, for example, Brian last time mentioned that he wants to do something with light painting. So I think it'd be great that, I'll get Brian in and we'll set something up in the studio back there. And he and I will work out the situation, and you guys can kind of oversee it and ask questions, and we'll explain the whole entire process as we go along. So I think that'd be kind of cool. Okay. Anyhow, that's it for the what's coming along the pipelines. So, and of course, if you guys got any suggestions that you'd like me to put into the works, feel free. Send it to me, either private message, email, or, like I had that other person do it, just post it to the Facebook page and see, if there's any interest. Okay. That said, what I'd like to talk about today is something we kind of touched on in the past when we discussed local adjustments versus global adjustments. And that is range masks. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit. What I like to do is take a bit of a deeper dive into range masks. Now, in Lightroom, they're called range masks because they use the range of certain aspects of the image. But you might be more familiar with the term luminosity mask in Photoshop, where you're using the light values of light and dark in order to create a mask to work on. Well, range mask in Lightroom works along the same line. We actually have luminosity mask in Lightroom, but we also can create masks based on color. And one that I've never used simply because I don't have any camera gear with LiDAR, and that is the depth mask. If you don't know what a depth mask is, a lot of the newer cell phone cameras have an additional lens. It's called a LiDAR lens. And what it does is it detects the depth of your scene, how far away the objects are that is being photographed. And if you followed photography back, I don't know, a good 10 years now, there was that camera, what was it called? Can't remember the name of it. It started with an L. I can't remember the name of the camera, but the way the camera worked is that you can take a photo, and after the fact, you can determine where your focal plane was and how deep your focal plane was and what parts of the image were blurry and all that. And the way it accomplished that is it built a depth map, and it allowed you to be able to control it according to that depth map. Now, we can create a depth map. Well, I'm getting all tongue-tied. With a black and white layer, but if you have a camera that comes equipped with it, you can just utilize it there. Again, personally, I don't have any cameras that have that capability, so I won't be able to give you a hands-on demonstration for it, but I'll show you, how to access it. Okay, so let me go over to the Lightroom desktop. And I have this image that I took with the Hartford amateur camera group. last year at one of our little outings. And
I remember that house.
yeah, we had a good time. And if we need to make adjustments to a very specific part of the image, we need to access very specific tools. All right. So you know that anything that you utilize here in any of these panels will create a global adjustment. All right. And what I mean is if I change the exposure on every single part of the image. Well, actually, you know what? Let me switch over to a windowed projector. Let me share the screen. Hold on. Put that up. Whoa! Where'd it go? There we go. Okay, share screen. Where is my window? Share. Oops, and it took it away again. There we go. Okay. All right, everybody can see that.
Not yet. All I see is a black screen.
Just
Nope, there it is.
Oh, okay. That was weird. All right. So if I make it's going to change the exposure on the entire image. However, if I wanted to just change, let's say, the exposure on the sky, what I need to do is I need to be able to isolate that sky from the rest of the image. And there's a couple ways we can do this. Obviously, one of the easiest ways is probably to just grab a brush and with the auto mask on, very carefully go ahead and paint in the area that we want to select. And here, let me just make, let me show the selected area. Okay, so I can just do something like this, all right? But now, that's a lot of painting that I have to do in order to select the sky, okay? And if there are any areas that are, you know, a little tricky, like where these trees are very sparsely defined, I might have some problem in that area, and I might actually select the tree along with everything else, okay? And of course, down in the thicker parts of the tree, there are these little spots of blue that may or may not, you know, interfere with our selection, okay? Is this screen refreshing enough, or is it getting stuck?
Lagging a little bit, but not too bad.
Okay.
For
All
me,
right.
anyway.
Yeah. It looks like it's lagging a little bit on my end, too. This is... Okay. All right, so...
It's
so
funny,
this...
now that you've colored most of the sky, I can really see the blue in the trees.
Yes, exactly. You know, but what I've done is what you're seeing is that red is actually the Ruby Lith overlay that lets me know what's been selected and what hasn't. Okay, and you know that creates a lot of manual work to paint. Okay, and now I'm using a tablet with a pen. Imagine trying to do this with a mouse. That makes it even more difficult. Okay. Additionally, when it comes to resources, brushwork tends to be a little bit more resource heavy than, say, a linear or a circular gradient. All right. So for that reason, I'm not a big fan of doing it this way. Okay. So let me delete that. Where's my delete key? Okay. But the point is, you need to access one of the local adjustments. Okay. So that was our brush. I'm going to select the graduated filter. Okay. Or our linear filter, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to select right above the house and drag it down. And if I hold the shift key, it's going to lock to that horizontal aspect. And if I want, narrow this down. What I'm doing here is in one fell swoop, I am selecting that entire sky. All right. But as you can see, along with that sky, I am also selecting a lot of the trees on the left and right, as well as the roof of the house. Okay, so this is where having a little bit of control of your mask comes into play. Now, we discussed in the past that one of the things that we can do is we can go down to the bottom. At the top, we can select our brush. Okay, and if we scroll down, these are our brush settings here, right in here. And we have two brushes available, so we can have two different sizes. All right, so we can have, like, for example, one brush that's big and one brush that's small, and then just flip back and forth between those two brushes depending on what it is that we want to do on our image. But all the way over to the right, we have the eraser, where we can actually erase from our mask. And when we select that, you'll notice that the icon has changed into a little negative sign instead of a plus. And what that does is, as I brush over, it's going to remove from that mask. But we still have the same issue here that we did with our brush mask, and that's the definition of our edge. All right. If we are not careful, all right, and you can see kind of like in this area here, all right, I've gone a little bit too far into the sky, and now I'm getting a halo, which is obviously not very good. It defeats the purpose. And I also have areas of green that, I totally missed. Okay, so this isn't a very good alternative. All right, so let me back this out. Get back, okay, and zoom back out. However, what we can do is we can say, okay, Lightroom, I want you to target just a very specific range of this selection. And we have several here. So we have right below our brush settings, we have range mask, and by default it's going to be off. Okay, range mask. And if you click on that, you're going to have a little drop down menu, and it's going to give you several choices. The first one is color. So you can select a certain color range. Luminance, which is the next one down, which is probably the more common one, because this is based on the lightness or darkness of very specific areas of your image. And then, of course, the last one is depth, which I mentioned earlier, which, as you can see, it's grayed out because this particular photo taken with my camera, my DSLR, does not have that data available. So it's not going to be selectable from this menu. Okay. But what I am going to do is I'm going to click on the luminance. Okay. And what that does is it opens up underneath it some additional selections. All right, the first one is Show Luminance Mask. Show Luminance Mask. And I'll get to that in 1 second. Next one down is the range. And by default, you're going to see that the range is completely from one end to the other along this slide bar. Okay. All right. And you'll notice that the next one down says smoothness, and it's right in the middle. Now, if you notice this slider called this little teardrop shape, the one directly above it for the range, it's that same teardrop except split in half. So we have the left half over at the beginning of our slider and the right half completely over at the end of our slider. And then right next to it, you're going to see two numbers. The first one is 0. The next one is 100. All right, this is the percentage. The first number is the position of this leftmost indicator. The second number is our rightmost indicator. All right. As I move it in, that percentage is getting smaller. If I come to the left, that percentage is getting bigger, meaning the range is getting smaller. So we can work it visually normally. Okay. But you can always notate the numbers if you need to reference numbers for any reason whatsoever. All right, so let me, wrong one. So let me bring that back up, okay? Now, there is the overlay is selected on, okay? And if you have this toolbar showing down here, you'll notice that it says Show Selected Mask Overlay. That is checked, all right? And if I uncheck it, that redness goes away. So this is a visual indicator while you are working that allows you to see where your mask is, okay? However, with the range mask, we have one additional mask that's available, and that's the Show Luminance mask. And this is going to do a couple of things to your image. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to turn everything black and white, and you can see it down here. Okay. It's also going to disable the selected mask overlay. Basically, what we're doing is we're replacing one mask with another, so it doesn't make sense to have two masks accessible at the same time. So it's going to disable that one automatically. Okay. But you can see that we still have our ruby lith. And this is going to be our main indicator that allows us to fine-tune our mask. So obviously what I want to do in this case is I want to select the very bright area of the sky. And what's nice about this particular image, and obviously this is a tool that is going to be fantastic for landscape photographers, is that we have a high contrast between that sky and our ground. All right, we have a lot of contrast between the trees in the sky as well as that roof line in that sky, and that's what we're going to take advantage of. So I'm going to put my Show Luminance mask on, and I'm going to pull the range slider from the left hand side, and I'm going to pull it towards the center, because like just the way our histogram is, all our darks and shadows are on the left-hand side of the histogram, and our highlights and whites are in the right-hand side. And of course, the middle is our midtones. It's the same exact same thing here with our range. All right, so I'm just going to that redness is disappearing from the tops of these trees. So once I get to that midpoint, 50% gray, all right, you can see it's at 49% right here. I'm losing all that red in those treetops, all right, and there's just a slight hint on that roof because that roof obviously has a little bit less contrast because we are more into those mid-tone grays, all right? And we can want to get rid of some of that, that red in the gray area of the roof. But you notice that in this section here of our tree, we're starting to lose our luminosity mask in the lower section. Okay, so that tells me that that part of the sky is a lot closer to middle gray than the upper part of the sky. So I can use that information and say, okay, is that critical? And the answer to that is going to be determined by what you are looking to change with this particular setting. All right. In my case, what I like to do is I like to add a little bit more contrast into the sky by bringing that blue out. So I'm going to make that blue a little bit darker, but I still want to have those clouds showing. So in this particular case, I'm going to be playing around probably with the exposure slider because that handles our mid-range. All right, so this mask is looking fairly decent. And now if we zoom in over here, you can see that those little spots that were missed previously, they're actually selected with the range mask. And look how clean that is. It's fantastic. All right. And if we scroll over, look at, we got a nice definition along that roof line. Okay. Again, we're losing it a little bit here, but you know what? In the scheme of things, I can live with that simply because I'm looking at the red, especially along this corridor between these two clumps here. There's a nice gradation. So I'm not going to get a hard transition between the area that I'm changing and that area that is not selected. So I think we'll be okay. And of course, these trees up here is looking really, really good. All right. So this is literally a luminosity mask applied to our linear gradient. Okay. Once we're comfortable with the selection, oh, nope. Before I forget, let me talk about the smoothness. All right. By default, smoothness is at 50% when you first open it up. You can change, bring it to 0. It's going to create a hard edge. So think of it as your edge transition. It's going to create a hard edge. And if we zoom in over here where we had that nice gradient, you can see that we're now getting a really, really weird halo around all our leaves, which is not what we want. We're even getting a little bit of a halo around our roof line. So we bring it towards really nice. We have a nice transition, and of course, we get a soft edge, which makes the purpose going in the opposite direction. And we're not going to have enough of a mask there to be effective around our edges. Okay. So typically 50% works really, really well, but you have the flexibility to change that. All right. Once you're comfortable with that, oops, come on. are you not? There we go. Okay. We can turn the show luminance mask off. I'm going to scroll back up to my settings. Okay. And I have the highlight selected, which by default on my computer it's at plus 50. I don't want that. So I'm going to double click on the highlights on the label for that, and it's going to bring it to the default. Okay. The other thing you can do is where it says effect, you can double click on that, and it's going to set the whole entire column to the default settings, which is 0. Okay. And in this case, what I want to do is I want to just darken that sky up. So I'm going to play around with the exposure, I'm going to bring it down, and if you notice that it's targeting just the sky way over, you can see there is a little tiny bit of halo, and this is what I mean by you have to be aware of what kind of changes you want to make to your image. Obviously, you can't go very, very drastic because then some of the inadequacies of the mask are going to come through. But often than not, you're not going to do anything this crazy in your image to begin with. Okay, so I'm going to bring it a little bit more natural. Tone down the highlights. Okay. And now that's looking a lot better to me. Now, if I scroll back down to the bottom panel, right down here, there's a little toggle switch. And this toggle switch will turn on and off the effect of that panel. All right. In this case, it's the gradient map. So I can turn the gradient map off, turn it back on, and you can see the change it has on the sky. Now, I have these lines going through here that show me where my gradient is. Okay. If I want to temporarily hide that, all I got to do is tap on the letter H key, and you can see that it has hidden those lines. So now I can see a clean after, and then that's before, that's after. Looks so much better. We brought back a lot of detail in that sky. All right. And then if I want to see my little pin again, I just press the H key and I have my pin back, and I can go ahead and adjust this if needed. Okay. All right. Now, the nice thing about this, I'm going to go back to my edit. And the nice thing is I can move this, still maintain my range. So if I want to apply some of these changes to this very bright area of the road down here, I just try all the way down, because I know this area is very bright in relation to everything else. Okay, in my opinion, that's makes it look a little bit flatter, so I'm not too crazy about that. Okay, but the nice thing is you can modify the position without it affecting your range mask, which is awesome. Okay, any questions on the range mask so far? No? Okay. The other thing we can do is we can use our color range mask. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a circular filter. One of the things that you'll notice me say when we are in Photoshop, that one of my favorite go-to adjustments in Photoshop is the curves adjustment. In Lightroom, one of my favorite go-to adjustment settings is the circular gradient. It's so much you can do with that. It's unbelievable. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to circle over this little red house here. Okay. And we still got highlights, but let's say I wanna bring less attention to this house, the red part. I wanna maybe drop the exposure on just on the red. Okay, so I'm gonna bring. I notice that if I do it all the way across, it's going to affect everything within that gradient. So I'm going to go back over to our range mask. Okay. And if I go with our luminance, okay, it's going to be tricky because that red has the same luminosity as that roof and part of this driveway here and parts of these trees. So the luminosity in this particular case will not work because it's just sharing too much of that luminosity with its neighbors. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select color. Okay. And you're going to notice that our tool selections are a little bit different. Okay. We have now, instead of two sliders, our range and edge, we have just an amount. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the little eyedropper tool, okay, because that's a new tool here. We have an eyedropper. I'm going to select that color red, okay, and I'm going to go ahead. Oh, let me turn on my mask overlay. We don't have, for some reason, I never paid attention to this, but we don't have a range mask for this, okay? And what the amount is how much to each side of that color selection do you want to include. So for example, the eyedropper picks a very specific color red. But if we look at the spectrums of red, we have lighter reds and we have darker reds from that point. So this allows us to control how much red we want to select. Okay? And in this particular case, because I have my mask overlay, which is also red, it makes it hard to see. So in this case, what I often suggest is go to the extreme of whatever slider you want to adjust. Push it to the extreme. And that will allow you to see how much of that red is being selected. So you can see that we have a different shade. Actually, let me go ahead and see if I can zoom in here. We have a different shade of red on the upper part of the house than we do on our lower part of the house. All right. And as I increase range, it's going to start selecting that. It's avoiding everything that's white and blue and yellow and even up here in the grays. All right, it's not selecting any of that. So that allows me to just target a very specific color. All right, and the nice thing about it now is I also have my color temperature. Color, I can shift the color of the house with our color temperature if I want to, or I can use my hue saturation, change the color to a blue house. I can do that as well. There we go. Now we have a blue house. Okay. So this targets a very specific color. And if you want to select a different color, you just create a new adjustment. Okay. All right. Now in this case, I don't want to change the color. I just want to make that less bright. So I'm just going to bring the exposure down a little bit, and call it done. Okay. And of course, if I turn that on and off, oh, I am out of it. Okay. If I turn that on and off, you're going to see the before and after. It's a subtle change. Oh, wrong one. My bad. Before, after, okay. Subtle change, just enough to knock that, intensity down, okay. Any questions with the range and color mask so far?
Not until I can play with it.
Okay, so these right here have been kind of fairly simple, very obvious examples that you can, very easily follow along. In this particular case, we had a clean definition between the sky and the tree line and the house, correct? So it's very easy to determine where the mask is. However, once you start understanding the intricacies of how luminosity masks work, you can also use it to do like dodging and burning, right? And let me show you how that works. I'm going to go over to my examples of people here. Here we have this young girl. If you haven't met her yet, her name's Amanda. She's looking to build her commercial modeling portfolio. Commercial modeling, not fashion, not, hey, I want a boudoir or whatever. She's 16, so keep that in mind. All right, so no boudoir, no approaching her for boudoir. You'll hear from me. But if you have some commercial projects you want to work on and you need a model, contact her. She's more than willing to trade for photos. Anyhow, here, it'd be nice if I showed you. There we go. You can see that we have some highlights in the face, all right, and not too much contrast in the face, okay. Now, of course, I can go to my basic panel and I can increase the contrast, which is, pretty decent. I can punch up the contrast a little bit here. And it does it globally. And in this particular case, that works really, really nicely. Okay. But what I want to do is I want to see if I can get a little bit more contrast in the highlights of her face. In other words, what I want to do is I want to use a little bit of dodging and burning. All right. In this case, we're going to dodge parts of her face. Okay. So I'm going to select my circular adjustment. Okay. Circular adjustment tends to be one of my favorites. And if I turn on the overlay, you can see that it is pretty much selecting everything within that circle. So I have parts of her coat along with her bangs. Okay. I also have her eyes. Okay. I don't want to do any dodging and burning on her eyes. I want to just keep it to the skin. And while I'm at it, because I want to just select the skin, maybe I'll do a little bit of skin softening too. Who knows? We'll see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come down to my range mask, and I'm going to select my luminance, not my color, my luminance mask. All right. Simply because me personally, I'm a lot more comfortable with luminosity masks. And you have to understand that faces have a lot of red in them. So there's also red in her hair. So I don't want to have to fight that if I don't have to. Although, keep in mind that even if we are using our range mask, we still have access to our brush and we can still remove parts of this mask that we don't want to work on. Okay? So that's still available to us. But we're going to use the luminosity mask. And I'm going to pull away from the shadow. Right? They're coming back. Oh, be nice if I should put the luminosity mask. There we go. So now you notice that the areas where it's black are her pupil and little bits of this area up here, there's no red in them. Okay, and if I continue going, right, now we can see, hopefully you can see, let me zoom in, you can see that there's little areas here under her brow that are no longer red, right? Because these are the shadow areas of her face. So if I keep going, here we go. I am just targeting the very, very bright areas of her face. That selection's even smaller, okay? So you can see that, let me turn this off. All right. You can see that there's a lot of subtlety and shading on her face. But with that luminosity mask, I can really just capture a very, very thin sliver of that luminosity range. Okay. And if I wanted to, for example, let's say target the shadow areas, and back, all right, you can see I have now my shadow areas. I'm starting to come a little bit into the hair. That's not a deal breaker. But if I pull away from the right hand side, I am just targeting the shadows of the face. Okay. And if I transition, I just increase my smoothness. Okay. And now I've just targeted the shadow areas. Okay. So actually, while I'm here, let's do that. Let me zoom to fit. Okay. So I have my luminosity mask. I have those shadows. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my luminosity mask. Okay. And I'm going to, I hate that this is so close to the edge. Okay. I'm going to bring my highlights off and I am just going to do shadows. Oh, it's not even. There we go. Okay. Let me scroll down a little bit here. Turn that off. Actually, let me hide. All right, that's with the adjustment, without the adjustment. With the adjustment, without the adjustment. So you can see that I've increased the shadows. I made them a little bit darker. Okay. So now I can take and create a new one. All right, let me bring that back. I can create a new adjustment. Circular here. Okay. And this one, I'm going to target just the highlights. All right, I'm going to come back down to my luminosity range mask. I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to bring this targets, those highlights. All right, if you need to zoom in order to see it. Okay. Let's just the highlights, soften up that edge. All right. Turn that luminosity mask off. I'm going to zoom back out. And now here, I can adjust. Okay. There's my highlights. All right. I'm going to hide that. All right. So there's after, there's before. After, before. All right. So this is a quick and dirty way of doing dodging and burning. And we're a little bit behind, aren't we? I'm looking at my other screen here. Are you what are you guys seeing on the screen? Are we good back on? All right. All right, so there's the effect. That's without the effect. With the effect, without the effect. All right. Again, it's a subtle one. We're just shifting the shadows a little bit darker and shifting the highlights in that very specific area just a little tiny bit in order to create contrast. Now, you might say, well, what if I just do one adjustment over her whole face? Okay, let me, where's my mask? Okay. Oops, mask. Let me delete this. Delete that one. Okay. I'm just going to. You say, okay, what if I just decide that I want to increase my highlights and decrease my shadows on just that one? Okay. Well, the problem is that it's also targeting the eyes, which my previous masks avoided. All right. My previous mask just targeted this shadow area. And the highlight area just targeted those highlight areas. Okay. Right now, that highlight adjustment is affecting my shadow adjustment areas. Okay. So everything where I want my shadows adjusted, that highlight area is affecting it. Okay. Because of that accordion effect. Okay. Vice versa, anything that I apply to my shadows is going to create a little bit there. So now I have to try to figure out some other way of adding a little bit of contrast. Who knows? Okay. It's not as finely controlled as being able to target a very specific area. Okay. So obviously you have to weigh it according to what image you're working on, but at least now you have the tool in your toolbox to be able to pull something off like this. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Let's go back to my chat. There we go. Okay. Any questions? Did I fry brains again? I hope I didn't. This is easy stuff.
No, I just have to like play with it after you teach it so that it sticks in my head, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
The question is, will it stick in my head?
Okay. Well, actually, you know, I'm kind of glad you said that because it leads me to a particular thing. Here, let me stop sharing. It leads me to a particular concern that a lot of photographers have, and that is how much editing do I do to an image? Okay. A lot of people think, well, you know, the camera kind of captured the scene as it was. That tends to be the argument. Okay. However, I know, because I understand the way cameras capture images, that that's not the reality. Okay? What the camera captures and what we see at that particular time are on polar opposites, simply because the way the technology works, the way the physics with light works with our cameras, right? And I often wonder if a lot of people use that as an excuse to be lazy about it, B, cover up what they don't know, right? Or C, I don't know, whatever C might be, okay? In my head, it always seems to sound a little bit more like a cop-out. And not a cop-out in a bad sense, because I don't expect everybody to have all the tools at their disposal as soon as they pick up a camera. It is a learning process, all right? But hopefully, what happens is when you see these examples and you start learning the tools, I'm hoping that it makes you a little bit more brave in being able to make changes to what you perceive as having been, well, that's the way it was, all right? And being brave in order to change it more into what it should be, okay? Now, of course, there's a big stigma around that, the Photoshop look that is very prevalent in the fashion industry. And I'll be the first one to admit that, yes, oftentimes a lot of that is so overdone and so unrealistic that, you know, you're not really looking at a person anymore. It's an item. It's a product. I won't go as far as saying it's a mannequin, but it's the personality of who that person is completely gone from that image. All right. That's the way I look at a lot of these, you know, like the cosmetic ads with, you know, all this heavy editing and that plastic perfect skin. Nobody is that perfect. However, you know, we all have a lot of flaws. All right. We all have things about ourselves that we want to minimize. Okay, that's why women do wear makeup. They want to minimize a lot of the flaws, make themselves look a little prettier. Okay, there are men that do wear makeup as well for that exact same reason. They want to make themselves look a little bit more youthful, not so white, not so pale, whatever the case. All right. It's a lot more rare with men than it is with women, but the sentimentality behind it is still the same. However, nobody likes looking at the mirror every time they look at a photograph. They would rather hope that the photograph presents them a slightly better version of themselves. right? That's why we do things like skin retouching, where we get rid of the blemishes, the pimples, you got a cut, you get rid of all those temporary things, okay? And then, we clean it up a little bit without really altering their looks too much. We want to create an emotion with our images. And a lot of times it's these little minor tweaks, these, removing these minor imperfections that brings it from, that's the way I see them every day, to, wow, yeah, I never realized how pretty that person was. Okay? We're bringing back that emotion into something that tends to be a little bit commonplace at times. All right. So, and it goes, not just people, it goes with environmental shots, landscape shots. Okay. We've all looked over at a sunset and we've all marveled at how beautiful it looks. And, 5 minutes later, it's gone. And you say, oh, I got to experience it. I wish I could have taken a photo. Well, you take a photo, and guess what? That photo that you take of that sunset is nowhere close to what you experienced. Okay? Your emotions were charged, even though maybe it wasn't as bright yellow as you can make it in a photograph. Okay? But the emotion at the moment of seeing it was very elevated. So when you go back to that photograph a day, 2 days, a month, a year later, you're going to look at it and go, yeah, I don't remember being that dull. Okay? Who wants to be reminded of the reality? I would rather be reminded of the experience I had at that time. So I'm going to edit that image to bring back some of that emotion that I experienced at the time I took that image. Okay? Which also touches a little bit on something that I've discussed as far as the self-worth of an image. When we as a photographer are taking a photograph, we are there at the moment. We are experiencing that moment with all our senses, our sense of sight, our sense of smell, of hearing, of taste. Okay? When we look at that image a week, a month, a year down the road, all right, we kind of sort of can recall those experiences, right? Especially the experience of time. We know what happened before. We know what happened after. We know the circumstances that led up to that image. We show that to somebody else. All of that gets stripped away. All the emotions, all the sensations, all the smells, all the sounds are completely eliminated from that photograph. That's why somebody else will go, and you'll go, what are you talking about? This is phenomenal. All right? Because they're not experiencing that image in the same way you did. So by editing and being able to visually pull back some of those emotions, why not? Go for it. Do it. Use the tools at your disposal to bring back some of that emotion. Okay? So anyhow, hopefully you will take these little tools, all right? It's not very complicated, as you saw. Experiment with it. See where it can be used, okay? And have fun with them. All right, that's it for my presentation today. If anybody has any questions about this or anything else, please feel free to voice them now.
Great, thanks, Doc. Appreciate it.
You are welcome, Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Duck.
Okie doke. And again, don't forget the 26th. Love to see you all there.
Bye, Duck.
All right, good night. Good night.